They replaced me at Thanksgiving like I never existed. But when I exposed years of secrets and silence, it didn't just change the guest list. It split the family in two forever. The moment I reached for the doorknob, my uncle looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're not family anymore, Noah. You need to leave." That's the kind of sentence that doesn't just sting. It rewrites your whole understanding of a lifetime in 3 seconds flat. My name's Noah. I'm 31. Born and raised in Cedar Falls, Iowa, a town where everyone knows your secrets before you do. And for most of my life, I've been the invisible one in my family. Not the rebel, not the mess-up, just the afterthought. The guy no one invited, but everyone expected to show up with extra chairs. I was the background noise in my own childhood. The one they called when a pipe burst but forgot when the group photo was taken. My mom, Karen, had a memory like a steel trap for mistakes. She could recall the exact tone I used at age 10 when I snapped at her, but never the science fair I won, the birthday card I worked 2 shifts to afford, or the time I fixed her roof in the rain. And then there was my sister, Rachel, 2 years younger, all pageant smiles and honor rolls. If I was the ghost, she was the golden statue. I used to think I could earn my way in. That if I brought enough pumpkin pie to dinners I wasn't invited to, showed up with gifts to birthdays no one told me about, they'd eventually look up and say, "Oh yeah, Noah belongs here." By 28, I knew better. I still went, though, sometimes. Out of obligation. Out of muscle memory. But last Thanksgiving was supposed to be my last. And then my cousin Ellie texted, "I saved you a seat. Please come." She was the one person in that minefield of a family who treated me like I mattered. 2 years younger, smarter than the rest of them combined, and emotionally fluent in ways the adults had never learned. If she said she saved me a seat, I believed her. So I packed a bottle of wine no one would drink and drove 40 minutes to the same house we'd used since I was a kid. Uncle Gary's place in Westfield. A house that looked like it had been airlifted straight from a suburban catalog. Inflatable turkey on the lawn, artificial smiles through the window, and the thick scent of butter and dysfunction leaking from every crack. I parked 3 houses down. That was my usual spot, because when you're not expected, no one leaves you space in the driveway. As I walked up, I saw them through the screen door. Mom, Aunt Susan, Rachel, Uncle Gary, laughing, wine glasses raised like some cult initiation. I didn't expect a red carpet. I didn't expect hugs. But what I got wasn't cold. It was calculated. Just as I reached for the handle, the door opened a crack. And there he stood, Uncle Gary, blocking the entrance like a bouncer at an exclusive club I never signed up for. He didn't say hi, didn't smile, just said, "You're not family anymore, Noah. You need to leave." I laughed. Not out of humor, just reflex. I thought he was joking. But behind him, I saw my mother laughing with Rachel, passing plates across the table. One had a name card on it. I leaned in. Rachel's boyfriend, Bryce, whom I'd met twice, was sliding into my seat. I blinked. Causes tension? I said. I haven't even stepped inside. He shrugged. The kind of smug shrug that says, "I've rehearsed this. Let's not make this harder than it has to be," he added. Behind him, my mother raised her glass, sipped, and didn't flinch. Didn't call him off. Just watched, like I was an uncomfortable movie scene she couldn't skip. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the wine. I should have. But instead, I nodded. Calm. Mechanical. Walked back down those steps like a man stepping off a stage after a final act. Sat in my car. Drove 2 blocks. Pulled over. And let my hands shake. Not out of rage. But out of something colder. Something that tasted like confirmation. Because I wasn't family to them. I was a placeholder. A seat filler. A favor machine when something broke. But I had something they didn't know. You see, for months, Ellie and I had been collecting stories. DMs, late-night calls. Quiet, careful truth-telling. She once said, if we ever wanted to burn the illusion down, all we'd need is one spark. So I gave it to her. A 5-minute message I'd spent weeks crafting. Not a rant. Not a pity plea. Just the raw truth, stitched together from years of texts, voice memos, audio clips. Like that time my mom told Rachel to take credit for something I'd done. Or Uncle Gary saying I only showed up for handouts, even though I never asked for a dime. It ended with one line. "This is what you've taught me family means." I had sinned. 5 minutes later, parked at the corner of that perfect little cul-de-sac, I watched. The front door opened. Ellie stormed out first, eyes red. Then Cousin Jason. Then Uncle Gary's friend, the one who always brought cheesecake. One by one, they walked out. Like the illusion was finally cracking. And that was just the beginning. Ellie was the first to call. My phone lit up before I even pulled out of the neighborhood, her name glowing on the screen like a siren. I answered, half expecting her to yell, but instead she said, almost whispering, "Noah, what did you just do?" "You read it," I said. "I did. So did everyone else." Uncle Gary's face went full eggplant. "Your mom tried to play innocent." And Rachel just froze, like she forgot what planet she was on. She was pacing. I could hear it, wind rushing through the speaker, the rhythm of fast footsteps over sidewalk cracks. Then came a pause, a quieter breath. "Why didn't you tell me you'd been recording them?" "Because I had. For almost a year. Every slight, every lie, every moment they painted me as dramatic, unstable, ungrateful. I was done being the emotional one, just because I remembered what they didn't want to admit. So I started collecting receipts. It wasn't revenge. Not at first. It was survival. Screenshots. Voicemails. Text threads where my mom asked Rachel if she could spin the story to make me look like I'd flaked on helping with Grandma's funeral. A screen recording of Rachel venting to her friend, who she didn't realize had me on Instagram, saying she couldn't wait for Noah to finally stop pretending he's part of the family. But the worst? A video clip from my birthday the year before. I was sitting at the end of the table. I'd brought cake. I'd brought gifts for other people because they'd mentioned anniversaries and new jobs. Not one person acknowledged it was my birthday. Not even when someone mentioned Pisces season. They just kept eating. And I'd smile through it. Like a damn fool. So that Thanksgiving message? It wasn't just catharsis. It was a line in the sand. I told Ellie all this. Quietly. Steadily. She didn't interrupt. "I didn't want you caught in the middle," I added. "Well, I'm in it now," she said, her voice cracking. "But I'm glad you did it." We hung up, and I sat there for a second, watching the street. More cars began to leave. Uncle Gary's voice bellowed across the lawn, followed by Aunt Susan's desperate hushing. Then nothing. Stillness. And then my phone buzzed again. Aunt Laura. "Noah," she said breathless. "Where are you?" "Down the street." "Stay there. I'm coming." 5 minutes later, she climbed into my passenger seat like she'd just walked out of a burning building. Her hair was frazzled, mascara smudged. And when she looked at me, I saw it, realization. Like she'd just discovered the monsters in her stories were never fiction. "I listened to all of it," she said. "Twice. I didn't say anything. I knew they were cruel sometimes," she admitted. "But this, Noah, I didn't realize how calculated it all was." "Really?" I asked. Calm. Tired. "You didn't notice?" "I saw pieces," she said. "But your mom always made it seem like you were the problem. Like you twisted things. That you remembered things wrong." "She didn't lie," I said. "She edited." Laura exhaled sharply. "This is going to rip the family apart." "Then maybe," I replied, "it was already broken." That night, I went home to a flood of messages. Some angry. Some confused. Some trying to smooth it over like I just overreacted to a rude comment. But the ones that hit hardest were the ones that didn't come. Rachel. My mom. Uncle Gary. Not one word. Until the next morning. That's when I saw the Facebook post. Classic Karen move. A long, flowery monologue about betrayal, privacy, and some people airing family wounds just to get attention. She didn't use my name. Didn't have to. Everyone knew. And the comments? Sympathy. Praise. Friends calling me disrespectful. "You raised him better," one woman wrote. "Boys these days." But then Ellie commented. So did Jason. Then Aunt Laura chimed in. And then, like dominoes, people began pushing back. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Family friends who used to buy into the glossy holiday cards. Even an old babysitter posted, "Wow, this brings back memories." Not all good. Some deleted their comments. Some blocked me. But some finally saw it. For once, I wasn't the only one shouting into the void. That same weekend, I got a message from Rachel's boyfriend, Bryce, the guy who'd sat in my chair. It read, "I didn't know. I'm sorry. If I had, I wouldn't have touched that seat. I promise." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because the message had already been sent. And not just the one in that family group thread. This wasn't the end. Not even close. But for the first time in decades, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like a match. And they had no idea how much kindling they'd stacked around themselves. 3 days after the explosion, I heard a knock on my door. Now, you have to understand, my apartment isn't the kind of place you stumble upon. It's tucked above a bakery on the quieter end of Coldwater Avenue, a spot I picked because I like waking up to cinnamon and silence. No one visits without a reason. So when I opened the door and saw him, my father, I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside. He hadn't been in my apartment in over a year. The last time we'd spoken was a rushed phone call about a roof leak at my mom's place. He looked older, thinner, still wearing that same worn leather jacket he'd had since I was a kid, now hanging off him like it missed the man he used to be. I saw the video, he said, barely above a whisper. Your aunt sent it to me. He didn't sit right away. Just stood there, eyes roaming the room like he was trying to calculate how different my life looked without them. Then he finally spoke again. Your mom's, unraveling. Says you ambushed her. Twisted things. I leaned against the kitchen counter and crossed my arms. Did I? He rubbed the bridge of his nose, like pressing the skin could somehow give him answers. I don't know, Noah. I mean, hearing it out loud, it was hard. Hard for who? That question made him pause. For me, he admitted. Because it made me realize how many times I stood there and let it happen. That sentence, honest, raw, hit me harder than anything my mom ever screamed. Because that's what silence is, complicity in slow motion. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't sure if I believed him or if he was just here for his own absolution. You remember when your mom threw out your sketchbooks? He asked suddenly. You were 12, I think. I nodded. That day is burned into my brain. I'd spent months drawing comic strips, silly ones, some of them poking fun at our family. My mom found a sketch where she was yelling, cartoon style, and decided it was disrespectful. She tore it in half, threw the rest in the trash. No discussion. No warning. She told me you'd drawn something inappropriate. My dad continued, his voice quieter now. Said you were mocking her. I believed her. Never even looked at the pages. That was the pattern, I said, still calm. She'd speak. You'd nod. Rachel would giggle. And I'd sit there wondering if I was losing my mind. He didn't defend himself. Didn't say I was being dramatic. Didn't try to revise history. He just nodded. Slowly. Like a man finally seeing the hole he helped dig. I can't fix what I didn't say, he murmured. But I want you to know, I see it now. I believed he meant it. But a part of me also knew regret doesn't erase what it allowed. His hands weren't bloody, but they were still red. I appreciate that, I said. But I don't know what you're hoping for. I guess, he sighed. I wanted to see if you're okay. And maybe, if there's still a way back for us. He left not long after. No big goodbye. Just a quiet door click. And I stood there for a while, staring at the spot where he'd been. It wasn't forgiveness I felt. It was space. The kind you don't notice until the furniture's gone. But I didn't have time to process that. Because 2 days later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's. Inside, folded neatly like a wedding invitation, was a single page. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning. You're destroying this family's reputation. You're creating enemies. You don't understand the consequences of public shame. It read like a threat dressed in pearls. I folded it once, dropped it in the trash, but that night, I couldn't sleep, because something had shifted. The silence wasn't just avoidance anymore. It was strategy. I started piecing things together quietly, methodically. That $2,000 loan I'd given Rachel last year when she said she needed to escape her abusive boyfriend? Turns out they were still together. He'd been the one sitting in my chair, laughing with my mother. I had also been quietly paying part of Uncle Gary's property tax. He never asked, just hinted at trouble. I covered it for 5 years like clockwork. And my mom? I'd been paying her car lease. For 6 years. Never missed a month. She said it was the least I could do. They called it support. But it was tribute. And I had finally stopped paying. That's when the silence turned to whispers. People in the family started messaging Ellie, saying I was ungrateful, that I had betrayed blood, that I'd stolen attention. But what they didn't realize, that seat they refused to give me, it never belonged to me. And now, I wasn't just out of the room. I was standing at the fuse box, and I'd already cut the power. The silence didn't last long, because I didn't let it. See, the thing about cutting off people who only saw you as useful, they don't mourn the relationship. They mourn the services. And when the money stopped flowing, the tantrums began. It started subtly. Rachel sent me a casual Venmo request, $3,000. Captioned, just until payday. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I got a group text from her with a fake cheery tone. Hey fam, anyone have tips on dealing with shady siblings? Uncle Gary? His bank sent him an alert that his annual property tax auto payment failed. He left a voicemail on my phone, not asking why. Just hissing, Real mature. Noah. Just remember who was there when you needed help. Funny. I don't remember ever getting help. But sure. And my mother? That was my favorite part. See, I never told her the car was still in my name. So when the lease defaulted, I had the right to reclaim it. December 10th, 8:15 a.m. Sharp, a towing company arrived in her driveway. The car was gone before she finished her morning coffee. She called me 15 times in an hour. No voicemail. No texts. Just relentless, unanswered rings. Finally, she sent one message. So this is who you've become? I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed. No, this is who you made me become. And then I blocked her. Christmas came fast. No invitation, of course. Not that I would have gone. Instead, I spent it with Ellie and a few friends, people who didn't require blood ties to give warmth. We made dinner from scratch, decorated a tree with mismatched ornaments and terrible puns, watched bad holiday movies and passed around mugs of hot cider spiked with bourbon and sarcasm. It was peaceful, real, and just when I thought maybe, they'd finally leave me alone, Ellie poured us each a glass of wine and said, "They called me." I didn't even need to ask who. I could already guess. "Let me guess," I muttered. "Damage control?" Ellie nodded, leaning back on the couch. "Your mom said I'm choosing sides, that I'm tearing the family apart." "You are," I said, smiling. "The part that needed tearing down." But then her face turned serious. She also said something else, that she was going to set the record straight. I sighed. Of course she was. The next morning, I saw it. A long post. Polished. Curated. Another carefully constructed monologue on Facebook about family hardship, misunderstandings, and certain people being manipulated by toxic narratives. No names, no direct shots. Just enough breadcrumbs for her loyal audience to guess who she met. But I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because by then, the narrative wasn't hers to control. Aunt Laura posted her own message shortly after. Simple. Devastating. Sometimes the only way to heal is to stop pretending it wasn't broken. Proud of you, Noah. Then Jason posted a screenshot of a text my mom had sent him, trash-talking me right after I'd sent him money for textbooks. The caption? We all saw it. We just didn't want to admit it. It was like watching a dam burst. Cousins. Former family friends. Even one of Rachel's college roommates started sharing their own stories. Little moments that echoed mine. Subtle cruelties they dismissed as just how she is. It was as if the truth had finally found oxygen. A week after Christmas, I found another envelope in the mail. No return address. Handwritten again. My mother's handwriting. Inside? Not an apology. A threat. You're destroying your own reputation. You're creating enemies. You've made powerful people look weak, and that always has consequences. It read less like a mother and more like a cornered politician. But I didn't reply, didn't post it, didn't rage. I just folded it and dropped it straight into the trash. Because I didn't need to fight her anymore. The truth was fighting for me. By New Year's Eve, the family had officially split into factions. The loyalists clung to her image like it was gospel. The others? They were gathering without her. Without Rachel. Without Uncle Gary. Ellie hosted a brunch in January. 20 people showed up. They brought stories, receipts, and most of all, relief. I sat on her balcony after everyone left, staring out at the winter skyline. I thought about the person I used to be. The boy who clung to empty chairs. The man who thought maybe, just maybe, if he was useful enough, they'd notice he was bleeding. I buried him that night. And the quiet that followed? It wasn't lonely. It was clean. They say when a house burns down, what remains is the foundation. Turns out, when a family burns down, what remains is who was building and who was only ever squatting in your life. By mid-January, the line was clearer than ever. There were the ones who stayed loyal to the myth, clutching the photo albums, pretending the mold was just character. Then there were the ones like Ellie, like Aunt Laura, like Jason, who finally looked up from the script and said, "Wait, we've been in a lie this whole time." But I wasn't done. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. The Thanksgiving message had cracked the illusion. The financial cutoff had dried up their comfort. But there was still one thing left they hadn't fully lost yet. Control. And they wanted it back. They tried quietly at first. I got a call from Rachel's boyfriend, Bryce, the same guy who once took my seat at the dinner table. He asked if we could just talk. I said no. Then came the group text. A carefully worded message from Uncle Gary about rebuilding bridges and leaving the past in the past. I left it on read. Then came the final blow. My mother showed up. At my apartment. No warning. No text. Just her. At my door. In her long black coat and crocodile smile. Like a lawyer walking into a courtroom she still thought she controlled. "Noah," she said, all warm concern. "I think we need to talk." I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. "I heard about your brunch," she continued. "Ellie told me some things." "She didn't tell you enough?" I replied. "Or you wouldn't be here." She sighed dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest like I'd wounded her. "I think this has all gotten out of hand. Public posts. Accusations. And now you're turning people against me." "You turned people against me for 30 years, I cut in. "I just stopped hiding it." Her face changed. Like a mask slipping. Just a flash, but enough to see the old rage underneath. "I was protecting you," she snapped. "You've always been difficult. Sensitive. You take things the wrong way." There it was. The old script. Gaslight. Dismiss. Deny. Only this time, I didn't bite. "You edited my life," I said. "You made me the villain in a story you wrote to make yourself look like the hero. But I've got the whole book now. With footnotes." She stared at me. "No one's perfect, Noah," she whispered, more venom than sorrow. "But airing this like some petty drama." "Don't," I said sharply. "You made this public when you posted about betrayal. I just made it honest." She stepped back. Just an inch. Like something in her shifted. Like, for the first time, she understood she'd lost. And then she played her last card. "I won't be the villain in your little story." And I smiled. "You already are. The difference now is everyone can read it." She left without another word. That night, I slept harder than I had in years. And when I woke up, I didn't check my phone. Didn't brace myself for new battles. I just made coffee, read a book, called Ellie and laughed about nothing for a full hour. The family never really recovered. Not fully. Some members drifted away quietly. Some doubled down. Rachel's still posting cryptic quotes. Uncle Gary. Rumor has it he's trying to get people to write letters of support for his version of events, whatever that means. But me? I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I started writing again. Launched a freelance design business with Ellie. We even opened a small studio space in town, paint-splattered floors, second-hand furniture, but filled with color and music and peace. Aunt Laura visits often. Jason helps us with bookkeeping. Cousin Brianna brings snacks. We laugh a lot. We listen. The holidays don't hurt anymore. They're just days. And when new people ask me about my family, I don't freeze. I tell the truth. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. And sometimes, I get messages from strangers who read parts of my story online. They say things like, "I thought I was the only one," or "You gave me permission to walk away." Those messages? They matter. Because this story, it stopped being just mine a long time ago. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own family, know this. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're just awake. You don't have to sit in the seat they left empty for guilt. You can build your own table. Invite your own people. And when they try to crawl back in with sweet words and selective memories, you'll recognize it. Because ghosts don't get to haunt the house you rebuilt from ashes.